Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a Christmas card to share with you using some Hello Bluebird products. I'm using the Gnome for the Holidays stamp set, which is one from last year and I haven't used it yet. So let's change that, and I'm also using the Nesting Deckle A2 dies. I just love this edge of the Nesting Deckle frames that you can make, or the rectangles. It's a bit wonky, it's so fun. It's, well, a joy. So I decided to give the background coloring with Copic Markers another go. So that's what I'm doing today. I used the River Rock ink from Fawn because I wanted to have this scene to appear a bit soft in the background. I really let that background coloring stand out. Now for the coloring, I'm not doing anything fancy. And as I said with the other cards that I have shared now, doing some Copic coloring in the background. I am convinced that you can do it too. I'm not doing anything fancy. I have once showed you like with simple trees a few weeks back, and then I showed you one without kind of a background, and here I just have this stamp that is guiding me with a few trees, but truly I have a ton of sky to color in, and I'm using all blue markers. So concerning like a transition in between and having kind of a smooth transition going from the darker towards the lighter area is easier because it's one family. And then I also took the N10 to really darken a few areas, but not too much either. So I'm just building up from there, and as you can see, I am coloring from right, I'm flicking towards the center, and from the left side the same thing, but left towards the center. I am not bothered about having everything colored in. As you can see more down below here with the lighter colors, it can go into the white. So that's what I did, and I actually stopped right here, and then I added a few colors to the trees, of course. Something that I did try to avoid was to color inside of the image. How I avoided that was to flick going or starting at that tree in the center. You can see that towards the right side, so I wasn't going to flick inside the tree. Otherwise, if I would have been coloring over the lines here, I could have used the colorless blender to fix that and sort of to push back that blue outside of that tree. So I did that really simple. I also am going to add a bit of color on the snowy hill kind of later on, but first the image. So from the Gnome for the Holidays, I decided to go with this one. It's like the biggest one with a gnome on. Of course, the house and such is really fun to do as well. But for this card, since I am doing a background like this and I'm putting my time and effort in it, I really want it to shine, so I don't want to distract too much, but I do want to have a critter. So one kind of a large one, this one will really cover the bottom of my card completely. And he's just dragging those gifts over the snow in kind of a night sky kind of, well, sort of scene. So I decided to go with kind of the regular kind of Christmas colors. I am doing reds, I am doing blues, and then I'm also adding a neutral brown kind of color to put on the pants as well as on the sleigh or sled. Well, you know what I mean. And so I'm just coloring from darkest to lightest. I stamp with the same ink. I could definitely have done this with a black outline, but I ended up doing the same gray. I will later on add some black on the eyes and the mouth of the gnome to just let it stand out a bit more. But I really love this soft kind of color of the outline from time to time on my cards. I also went for the gray and not for the brown because of the combination that I used in the sky. I think if I would have gone with warmer tones, that I would have done a brown outline of my image, also for the background trees. But in this case, since it's all with the blues, I think the gray works perfect. So I'm also reusing some colors here. It's completely different from the background, but I mean, I'm using like the same reds, I'm using the same greens, and then later on I wanted to have for the gifts, I wanted to have 3 red combinations, but then eventually it ended up sort of not completely different. You will see the first layer, they are completely different from each other, but it was just not popping enough. So I kept adding markers, and I tried to list like the end result markers on my blog post to really help you with combinations that you might love. But I didn't do the first combination of the gifts because I just changed it completely by going over it with other markers. You will see that. You will see that later on. For the sled, I'm not doing anything fancy. I have 2 brown markers. I don't even think that I'm doing a second layer because it's just really fine and, well, tiny area still, so the blend was already there. And then the packages here, like the gifts. This one, I'm just doing the same combination as the hat, and then the one below I wanted a bit darker, and the one on top I wanted a bit lighter. But it was definitely a work in progress because I just wasn't finding my combinations to work. So you will see. Here I wanted to have the darkest one, and in the end it stays quite dark. I actually think even that aside from this marker, I kept the combination. Like this marker I did, the 37, but then I found it just a bit too pink, so I went over to the R14. And it sort of works, but like, was there enough shadowing in between? I just went back in there, changed it up and such. So you will see that continuing this coloring. So really simple. Later on I will also add some white jelly roll pen details, not like highlights, but like dots and stripes to just change it up a tiny bit. So here really going dark, 27 in the end to help me. Then again going over my first combination, but with the E59 as well, just because I needed a bit more shadowing contrast in between my 2 packages. And then here my final one, I also went a bit darker, and then I did the bow a bit darker as well. And actually doing the bow darker really helped me also to tie in that that gift with the other ones. So now a few details here and there, some dots, some stripes, which is not something that I do often, but it's really adorable. And I always like it when I do it, but I just don't do it often. Well, it depends on how simple you want to go, but since I kept everything this, well, red, just to change it up a bit. So I'm just going diagonally here. I contemplated doing like a cross, but I didn't do it because I really liked like the spacing that I had and I didn't want to mess it up. So here I'm just going to do the eye and then the mouth, and that's my gnome. So next up, I'm going to die cut this image using the matching die, and then we can play a bit more with placement, also the sentiment we still need to add, and then I embellished like the background with some snowflakes. So let's do that first. I wanted those trees to still show, so that's why I added the gnome a bit more towards the left, and then I took a sentiment, a simple one, Merry Christmas, from this stamp set, and I added it. I first wanted to add it on the ground, and then I thought, since I have all of the sky, maybe I can just white heat emboss it in the sky and just, well, let that white on the blue draw the attention. So that gave me a bit more room on the bottom, which originally was my idea to add the sentiment. So if I would remake this card, which I don't do because I do every card only once, I would have added the scene a bit lower because I have everything in the sky. But since this was an afterthought, I'm just going to add a gnome a bit lower as well. And I'm going to add a bit of snow, like a bit of shadowing, as grounding as well. So in this stem set there is also a snowflake, so I'm just adding it, trying to have it a bit random. Then I'm going to white heat emboss that as well, and then I will also add some more snowflakes in the background. I'm going to use the white jelly roll pen again, not doing any splatters with gouache. Why? Just because. But you can definitely splatter around with gouache if you want to. You can also splatter on the gnome. But when I add, like with the white jelly roll pen myself, I tend to not add it to my images, but that's totally up to you. I think I'm just afraid to add more to the image. Plus I also have like those details already with the white jelly roll pen on my gifts here with the gnome, so maybe that was just a bit too much. So before doing all of the white jelly roll pen, also the shadowing on the grounding, I am first going to add my image to sort of let me guide myself with that. If I add like snowflakes to the white jelly roll pen, I don't want to waste my time adding them where there is going to be an overlap with an image. So therefore I add those white jelly roll pen details in the sky later on. I'm removing the backings. These are thin foam squares from Scrapbook Adhesive, my favorites. I love them. And every time I have like an order that I place at Carte Nouveau, I'm like adding thin foam squares on top to get like free shipping. So I think that's a way to really avoid paying shipping and still have your basic supplies already in stock every time. So that's what I do. And then I decided to add well, a bit of, well, traces in the snow kind of with W2 and W6, no, W2 and W0 to represent like the footsteps and like the sled that is, well, going through the snow. I did that, I thought it was enough. I'm going to add a bit of blue for some snow on that hill as well. Now before adding it to my card base, I'm first adding a piece of white paper, Transotype, just to have the same white as my panel that I colored. My card bases are just slightly different white and I just don't like it, so well, I don't like to have different kind of white panels on top of each other, so I prefer adding my piece of paper first, trimming the excess off, and then being able to add this on top. I decided here to add a bit of that B000 on the edges mostly, and then a bit of shadowing around the image, just because otherwise it was going to be white on white. White on white is perfect, but I just thought with that background that was really crazy on the top, it just was a bit too white. So just a slight bit of blue here, and then I'm going to add this panel on top of my card base using some foam adhesive. These are foam adhesive sheets that I made myself with some fun foam and score tape. If you want to also create this yourself, it's a cheaper way of adding dimension or dimensional panels on top of your card. Is from Carissa Wiley, so definitely check her out. If you want to create some foam sheets yourself with adhesive so that you don't have to pay for it like that. And they are already prepped, so it's really easy to add your panels with dimension if you want to. So I'm just trying to center it, and then we will finish this card off using some more white jelly roll details. But if you want, you can stop here, and then you have this clean card. There are snowflakes in the sky. But let's just add some more white jelly roll pen details to this panel. So I just added, I'm trying to get them on there randomly. I'm still figuring out how I can do that more efficiently, but for now it is just fine. It's a bit of mindfulness as well. It's like coloring with pencils. I recently read a comment where indeed if you color with pencils it takes up all of the attention, which is great because often we just do too much at a time. And I know myself as well, whenever I am creating cards I always put on Netflix or Disney Plus and I'm watching movies. Well, not really, because I'm really focused on my cards, but there is always some noise, some disturbance, because well, I don't know. With cards, I could do it all silent and no distractions, but it's the only thing that I can do without. And all of the rest is like scattered, like I have tons of things that are stimulating my brains, like movies. So, mindfulness when you're adding those white jelly rolled pen details. I really love how it turned out. I hope that I can inspire you to try to just use your markers as well for that background, because if I can do it, you can do this. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to have inspired you today, and I will be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!